Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to chapter 6 in the course, ceramics and carbon materials. We have been going forwards and backwards in terms of the number of chapters. So this probably is the last chapter that we can cover this time. As always, what are the questions that we want to answer in this chapter? What are ceramic materials? What are the industrial uses of ceramics? What happens to ceramic materials at the end of their useful lives? Is graphite a ceramic or a polymer? Do other carbon materials offer unusual properties? Right? So some of it and a lot of it is ceramics, but as we say, carbon materials. So we will touch on that also. And just a quick reminder that in a basic course on material science, whether you have done a single course or two courses on materials, you have already covered ceramics. So, but there is a big gap. So I will again do what I don't want to do, but which I think is good and useful for you, that we do a quick review of the material that you have covered earlier before moving on to something new, right? It wastes time in one way. If I just say that, you see, this much material is required from your previous course, just please review it yourself, then that is a very valid request, but I will try to help you by quickly going through earlier topics again. What are ceramic materials? And again, right, this part, which is sort of a review, we will try to do quickly so that you at least take some initiative from your own side. Ceramics are compounds containing metallic atoms bonded to non-metallic atoms. Most common non-metallic atoms are oxygen, nitrogen, or carbon. The name comes from the Greek word keramos, meaning pottery, because ceramics are pottery originally. Ceramics cover a wide range of materials from glasses to cement to body armor, lots of different things. And you must realize that glass is one of the most common ceramics around and has been there for a very long number of years. There is a blend of ionic and covalent bonds, right? Because they are bonded, so ionic or covalent bonds. And the blend provide most ceramics with very good hardness, very good wear resistance, and very good stability and other properties. Now the ionic and covalent bonding in simple ceramics, it depends on the electronegativity difference, right? You know that this is the first column, this is the second column, this is the sixth column, this is the seventh column of your elements table, right? Periodic table. So if they are far apart, number 1 against number 7, then there is a big difference in the electronegativity and so on. So some common compounds which are ceramics, zirconium dioxide, magnesium oxide, aluminum oxide, and so on, silicon carbide, silicon nitride, they are all very famous ceramics. Bonding atoms are these, right? Zirconium to oxygen, silicon to carbon. Electronegativity difference, as high as 2.3, 2.2, as low as less than 1. Percent ionic character. You see, if the electronegativity difference is high, then 70, 80%, 75%, it is ionic bond, and only 20, 25%. But if the electronegativity difference is small, then major bond is covalent and a smaller amount is ionic, right? So this is a very quick summary of some very famous ceramics. Here we are just again showing you, for example, that we have calcium here, we have fluorine there. So if it is calcium fluoride, so then the electronegative difference from 1 to 4 is big, right? Calcium fluoride. But if we take silicon and carbon, another very, very famous ceramic, then from 2.5 to 1.8, less than 1, right? Both are ceramics, one metal, one non-metal, or one metal to another metal, right? And so on. So these examples are there. You can make other ones here and you can find the electronegativity difference between them. Some more simple ceramic compounds: hafnium carbide, titanium carbide, tungsten carbide, silicon carbide, and so on. But this time, and other ones, but this time the melting point, right? So this is one list, this is the other list. Melting point, if you see, from around 1600 Celsius to more than 4000 Celsius, right? So this is one of the most important characteristics of ceramic materials, that they are seriously temperature resistant, right? Seriously temperature resistant. So if we want to make a furnace and line them inside, if we want to make space shuttles which will come back into the Earth's atmosphere at a very high speed and their outer bodies will be really almost burnt out, then ceramic tiles and ceramic coatings and so on will be very much there. You remember the word refractory. Any material which has very high temperature resistance is known as refractory materials. So it means that ceramics are major refractories. Very quick review of your earlier chapter on crystal structure, because that will be used here. The most famous three structures: BCC body centered cubic, FCC face centered cubic, HCP hexagonal close pack, right? BCC, FCC, HCC. Atomic packing factor, volume of atoms in the unit cell divided by the volume of the unit cell, right? So just go through it very quickly, because ceramics are mostly crystalline in nature. Therefore, the calculations that you do for crystals, earlier you were doing it for pure metal crystals, now you will doing it for compounds, but the structure will be similar. So for body centered cubic, this is the structure, this is the actual atom to atom touching structure. These are the distances: root 2a, root 3a, 4r. This is the characteristic equation between the cube constant a and the radius of the atom, and so on. So this is body centered, right? Body centered. This is face centered cubic. This is how it looks. On each face there is one in the center. So on any face, the touching one is this. So the equation is root 2a is equal to 4r, right? So these, again very quickly go that face centered cubic, how they are arranged and so on. For cubic crystals, direction indices, if you go from here to here, then what are the direction indices? If you go from here to here, here to there. So just quickly go through them. Direction indices, that if you are going in a certain line, then how do you write the direction indices, right? And how do you calculate them? If the direction is given, how would you find the numbers? If the numbers are given, how would you find the directions? Planes, Miller indices, front plane, diagonal plane, triangle plane, right? So what are the Miller indices for this plane, for this plane, for this plane? Very quickly revise. How do you get the Miller indices? How do you see that x, y, z axes are cut in which locations, and from there you make the Miller indices? Or if the Miller indices are given, can you draw? Because again, right, all these very basic things about one direction, about one plane, and so on, about the volume of the cube, about the area of the surface, all these will be required in doing properties for ceramics. So this is your earlier course. Quickly revise this and do some very simple calculations on these. Now ceramics, right? We have again said that the bonding is primarily ionic. So metals will be the cations, the small ones, and the non-metals will generally be the anions, but it can be the other way around. And of course, ceramic lattice is more complicated than pure metals, because in pure metal, when you have an FCC, then all corner atoms, all center atoms on the faces is the same metal, If it is iron, then all are iron. If it is aluminum, then all are aluminum. But here it is iron oxide. So some will be taken by iron, some will be taken by oxygen, right? So for example, titanium and oxygen, right? Titanium and oxygen. So titanium is 4 plus and oxygen is 2 minus, right? So there will be more oxygen atoms if you want to balance, because you see it is chemically balanced. If it is titanium oxide, then it has to be chemically balanced. There is no net charge. So if it is 2 minus, then 2 of oxygen will become -4 and 1 of titanium. So for 1 titanium there should be 2 oxygens and so on, right? So in a cubic cell for titanium oxide, this is how they will be arranged. Here, right, if this is one arrangement, only 2 of them to 1 of them, right? The smaller one will be called the cation, the big one will be called the anion. So if 2 of 1 is there, then the third one is here. If 3 are there, then the third one is in the middle, right? And so on. So if 4 of them are there, then the one is in the middle. So now this is one thing. This is one thing. Now here, if the small one is touching the 2 large ones, then it is stable. But if the small one is not touching any of them, then it is there inside. But if this small one could be large enough so that it could touch all the 3, then suddenly this 3 base structure would be stable. But this, because now it is, if it is in the center, then does it touch this one, or does it touch this one, or does it touch this one? So how do you find the distances from one to the other? So it will be unstable. Similarly here, right? This is a stable, it is touching. This is a stable, this, but this is now not so small, this is bigger, so it is touching. But again, if it is hanging in the middle, then it could be anywhere. It could be here, it could be here, it could. So this is unstable, right? The number of atoms that a cation touches is called the coordination number of the ceramic. Coordination number. In this case, coordination number is 2. This small one is touching 2 of them, right? In this case, the coordination number is 3. In this case, the coordination number is 4, right? That one atom of one kind, the metal or the non-metal, is touching how many atoms of the other one. So this is called coordination number. And here the coordination number is 3 and it is stable. Here the coordination number 4 and it is unstable. So these are basic things. And here, that if the coordination number is 2, then the ratio of one atom to the other, right, the smaller one to the large one, should be less than 0.155, then coordination number 2. If the coordination number is 3, this ratio should be between 0.155 to 225 and so on, right? So this is a guideline. Again, you have done this earlier. You can quickly go back to the basics of ceramics in, say, the Newell book or the Callister book, basics, and you will see these coordination numbers. And this will be the critical radius ratio. Critical radius ratio, the radius of the cation, the smaller one, to the radius of the anion, the larger one, right? If it is not in this range, then it is unstable, right? So here, a much bigger table with ionic radii only. Of all the major materials, aluminum, antimony, arsenic, this, that, nickel, this, that, and so on. The iron, 3+, 3+, 2+, and so on. And the radius in nanometers, So all potassium, lead, this, that. So all the general elements and their ionic radii are given. So if we have to calculate in some calculation, because you see, normally in a general table, the radius of the atom is given. Here they are ions, right? If it is iron oxide, then Fe plus ion and O minus ion, not Fe atom. So some electrons have been added or subtracted. So ionic radius, not atomic radius. If you use atomic radius, it will be approximate result. It will not be totally wrong, but the results will be approximate. But if you have ionic radii, then the calculations will be totally correct.